which is the dish that is made to feed kings and queens, because that dish was only traditionally eaten during those special once in a lifetime events. So if you walk into one of our restaurants, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and I'm sure you'll be back.
We have a really special treat today. We're talking with Raul Luis from the Birria. It's a restaurant here in Eastern LA. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about flavor. We're going to talk about how he creates these amazing dishes. And then we're going to talk more about how you can have a bite and taste his restaurants, the food from his restaurants as well. Raul Luis, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm very, very honored to be here speaking to you.
So you heard my tease a second ago between family and food and the restaurant, the birria itself. Where would you like to start? Let's go with what's the most important message you want the audience to hear today?
I think we can start talking about how birria came to LA. How did we get it here? What caused that trigger to start selling the food here in LA? I think that'll be a great starting point.
Let's go for it. Tell me more.
Okay, so my dad was given a certain skill set. The skill set was handed down to him to make birria. Birria is the chivo goat meat. He used that skill set back in Mexico. He came to the U.S. When he came over during the Bracero program. He was talking to his buddies, and he told them that he's a birriero. He knows how to cook birria. So they would ask him if he would cook that dish for him, because that dish was only traditionally eaten during those special once in a lifetime events, baptisms, quinceañeras, weddings. So the common denominator in all those events was the birria. You went, you knew you were going to have birria. There were certain. I tell people the story because I remember being small myself when I was young, that we wouldn't eat meat too often because we were vegetarians, not by choice, but because of circumstance. And when someone was having a party, we said, "Wow, we're going to eat birria today." We knew, we looked forward to, we're going to eat meat. It's time to, let's get ready to go eat some meat, get ready, put on your Sunday clothes and go. So when my father came to the U.S., people knew about him. They asked him if he would cook their dish for him. When he cooked the meal for someone's wedding, quinceañera, baptism, for a special occasion, he would cook extra. So his friends would come over. When his friends would come over, he would serve whatever portion it was, usually like a whole carcass of lamb, 50 pounds. And then there was some left over. So he would feed his friends. And he would tell the stories when he would feed his friends wouldn't leave. They would stay there for hours. And they would be talking and talking. And my dad was, come on, I got to go do my Sunday, my day off. We got to go do our family, or Saturday. And they were there for hours, and all they were memories, all memories, special occasions. Remember this, remember that. And my dad saying, "Man, what? Why are they talking? Why are they staying here so long?" It was the food. He didn't realize the time. It was the food that was triggering that trigger in their mind that was saying them. Basically, they're time travelers. They're going back to those special events. But I tell people it's not just any special event, it's those once in a lifetime events. They were much more exponential, much more magnified because it was somebody's wedding, it was somebody's quinceañera, somebody's baptism. So I think that's what's, I can, wait a minute, people are staying here longer. And that's why it evolved. I don't think it was done by choice, but kind of like circumstance. Oh, this is happening. Like, if they're here for 2 hours, well, let me sell some more. Let's cook some more. And that's how he began cooking more, extra, extra, and then began his I call it cenuleria, kind of like his house. Come, my mi casa, tu casa, coming in here. People started flocking. It took several years, but it was very, very successful weekend business for him.
Your father was an amazing person. I'm gonna rewind a little bit, and you're gonna tell me where my dates are right or wrong. Maybe the early 1960s, back in Mexico. He's working in a mercado. He has a tiny little, 5-chair restaurant in the mercado.
Right.
So he goes from that to immigrating to your house. House restaurant, if you will. Is that the right word?
Right. Right.
Tell me a little bit about your dad and what you think inspired him to take this huge life journey and what that taught you.
I look back and I say, how do the immigrants do this? How do they leave their country, leave everything behind? So that he had a small spot, maybe five people to sit there. He would sell on the weekends. Business wasn't that brisk. They were opening up a new let's call it a shopping center, but it's a market. So, but they had required a down payment to get that spot, to secure the spot. So he had to come to the U.S. so he could save some money up. So he came during the Bracero program. When he came during the Bracero program, they're getting these people and they're vetting them and they're putting them in different groups. They asked, does anybody know how to cook? And that raises his hand. So I'm a cook. I'm a birriero. You remember, men in the whole during that time frame, it wasn't acceptable to be a cook unless you were a taquero or a birrero. Those are the only male role or acceptable, I guess, jobs you can have as a cook. Otherwise, the women did all the cooking. So he came over. They asked him if he knew how to cook. He says, I know how to cook. So he began cooking birria for the farm workers. And when he was there, he was limited because now he was out of his comfort zone. He was no longer in Mexico. He didn't have access to all the spices that he used back home. So he had to adjust them. And one of the main things, if you guys get to watch on Birria World or the Chronicles as they're doing the preparation of the different birrias, when they're cooking it before they put the red adobe sauce, it's white. So all the farm workers they ate it up, but the people who were in charge, the managers, they wouldn't eat it because it wasn't easy on the eyes. People eat with their eyes. So a chef came over and said, you know what are you doing? I'm doing this. He goes, why don't you add the red before? So our process changed. We marinate it before we cook it. And then the second one is there wasn't all the spices we needed. So the chef that was there helped them uh, get new spices or tweak the recipe a bit. And that's what that happened. When he came over, I guess he, like anybody else, you have that aspirations and his dream as many immigrants is they come to the U.S., make some money, go back. He never went back. Once you plant roots, then it's hard to go back to your country of origin. So I think that's what happened with him.
We are here talking with Raul Luis, Birria in East LA. It's so evident that you're a man with cultural value. You have a deep family history, you have a cultural history. Obviously, food is part of that history. Can you talk a little bit about the cultural value and the meaning behind birria and why it's important to you?
It's really important because it's a dish. And I tell people when I tell them they kind of get worked up. Oh, you get all worked up about it. Why do you? And I can go on for hours talking about it. So I would let me take a little backdrop. We had a third party came and did a story on the origins of video into LA and possibly the US. And in the process of talking, they took this documentary, so to speak, and presented it in front of a classroom of kids. And they did like a pre-screen. The kids were talking. One of the kids came back and says, "Oh, you guys were the gatekeepers." I said, "Gatekeepers? What do you mean the gatekeepers?" I sat down for a while and my head starts exploding. I'm thinking, why did he say that? Well, now I get what he was trying to tell us was that we were the gatekeepers of a certain skill set, which is birria, which is the dish that is made, and I tell people it's made to feed kings and queens, right? And they say, well, how do you do that? Well, because if in our region, central Mexico, the birria is eaten fed. Most of the population in Mexico, I'm sorry, is about 85-90% Catholic. So one of the first steps is when the child is born, they take him to the church, and that's where he becomes a king. They baptize him. They have a festivity. There's a party going on, and then the second phase is they feed the quinceañeras. That's a rite of passage where you go from a childhood to adulthood for the girls. So now you feed the princesses the birria. The next step is when the lady gets married, she's the queen. She gets married. So the common denominator in all three of those things traditionally was birria. That's the only thing that was common. That was a trigger that helped people look back to those special occasions. So when people eat the birria and wow, they go back to that once in a lifetime event. That's what it means. So people like it's a trigger. It's a time traveling for them. I don't know if that's being used out now. Time traveling and remote view and all that stuff, so people can go back and those trigger those special memories. And it's also the memories. Fast forward that into when we came into LA, the parents will bring their kids, and there's kids that because of the document just came. I used to come here 20 years ago. I haven't been here. My dad used to bring when I was a kid. I said, "Well, see, that's all that. Those are the special memories." And they talk. I was talking to a gentleman there. He's in his late 30s, and he was telling me that he could remember that his father would go into the restaurant, and they would stay there talking for hours, and all they were talking about was the past, and that kind of helped him because he heard stories that he had never how he met his the father met a mom, with their cousins, their uncles, lost relatives. So that's what it does. It brings the family together, and they just remember about those simple times, fun times. People were laughing and dancing, and they forget about all the worries that life has to bring now. So I think that's one of the main points there.
Is there a most common dish at the restaurant? What's everyone waiting in line for? What's the most common dish and what's everyone falling in love with at the restaurant?
So we're known for birria. So if you walk into one of our restaurants, 9 out of 10 plates will be the birria. Okay, so that's what the line's for. They want the birria, they want the birria de chivo. I have customers come in sometimes and they're a little hesitant. We say, "Oh, wow, God, I don't know. I'm gonna try it, maybe not." And I'm a little hesitant. But once they try it, they realize that our cooking process, which is a 10-hour cooking process, we used to use a underground pits and cook it was with the mesquite wood and it would have that flavor. We can't do it anymore. But when you go into our place, we steam cook it for 10 hours, and the gaminess, the taste, our process, all that fun stuff, secrets that they're like the Coca-Cola secrets where you can't divulge all the information, help us dissipate the taste of the goat. So that's what the number one dish is, the goat. So we're known for, you walk into our place, it's goat.
Can you walk us through the flavor? I know on the videos I've watched, you walk us through quite a lot of detail. I understand the idea that Coca-Cola secret. Can you give us an idea about what the flavor, if I'm going to come down today for lunch or dinner, what that actually is on a dinner plate, what the flavor's like, and a little bit about the preparation itself?
Okay, so the preparation is it's about a 2-day process. 2 days sometimes, depending on, you get the carcass in, we cut it up into pieces. So it's a whole carcass, and you get to cut up. And there's different parts. There's the ribs, there's the neck bone, there's the what we call the penicil, which is the French rack. There's the leg. There's all these different cuts. Every single cut has a different taste profile and texture. So when you walk in, it depends on you. How dirty do you want to get? Do you want to get down and dirty? You get the bones. I tell people the neck is the best part because it's so tender, so soft, not too much fat on it. If you like the nerve, then you get the ribs. It has a little thin membrane, kind of like have you guys ever had honey? There's a little wax. You get that little waxy feeling to like cartilage. So you get that bite when you get it. The flavor is in the bones. It's amazing. There's people who don't like to deal with the struggling or getting dirty, so they go with the all leg meat. That's the drier part. I don't really recommend that. It's good, but it's not my first choice. Absolutely. So that's the whole cooking process. We cook it, we steam it, we marinate it, let it sit for about 24 hours. Then we put it into our pressure cooker, and then part of the science is the way you stack it up. Like, how can I compare that to? I don't know if you guys ever seen people uh, when they create bricks back in Mexico, they create like a pyramid, and then they put firewood under it. If you don't do it correctly, part of the bricks won't cook. They won't harden. It's the same thing with the birria. You have to put it up a certain way to make sure that all the meat gets cooked properly. My son was doing it. He thought he had passed the test, so to speak. He goes, "That's my turn." Like, okay, here you go. He put the pressure cooker, put all the meat, stacked it up. Then 10 hours later, we go there, we take it out. All the outside nice and cooked perfectly. In the middle, all raw. What you do? I says, he didn't get it. He didn't understand it. So it's not something that you learn from one to the next. It's a process. So that's the cooking process. Once we take it out, we pull it out. We got to separate it so we can have all the different parts. We can distinguish the leg from the neck bone, from the ribs. Put that aside. Then we put it in the oven so you can get like a slow roast, nice little crispy, tender on the outside, real soft on the inside. And then the most important thing is the consomme. That's the broth, the honey. We call it the honey. You can't have it without the consomme. The birria isn't birria without the consomme. That's what gives it the flavor. That's what takes it to the next level. So people say, "Oh, I had birria. I didn't have it. It was a taco." No, you got to have it with the consomme. So if you see now the new movement with the birria, they dip the sauce. It's kind of the same concept. But I would like to think that our consomme is a little more intense, more flavorful because we use the broth from the goat and stuff, from the meats that it distills. So it's really flavorful. You got to try it. If you get a chance, you can watch it on Video World. There's one we do a tour, and I explain how is probably the best way to maximize your the taste of the birria. And the first thing is to always taste the consomme. That's the most important because you can know where you're at. If you want to add more salt, if you're a lime person, like lemon juice or hot sauce, you do it there.
Learning about how this one meal really does interweave between families and history and lifestyle and culture. And you mentioned some fast food places. I don't know if you want to mention them by name or not, that's up to you. But the good news and the bad news that how those fast food places have been working within the same cuisine that you work in. Is there something you want to touch upon there?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. People you always when I first saw for example Del Taco, Pollo Loco, and a few other places that were selling birria. I said, wait a minute, I looked at the commercials and I said, but they're not selling it the way it's supposed to be eaten. It's supposed to be in a plate. I'm like, that's wrong. So at first I was a little like worked up. I said, wait a minute, they're missing the point here. They're what it means to the people from back in Mexico. So I'm sitting there. I said, but there's always a silver lining. What's a silver lining? The silver lining is that now they brought this dish into the mainstream. I would have never been able to do that. These guys with these big budgets are able to cross over and speak to different generations, different ethnic groups, and Tambiria. Now they know in their mindset, oh, birria, oh, I know what that is. Before, when we first opened up, and I would put in my restaurant, the sign would say birreria, and I would go to my kids playing baseball or softball. She says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I own a restaurant. What's it called?" "Birria." "What is that?" I pass by that place every day. I don't know what that is. Now people know what it means. Before it didn't. So I give them credit for being able to make people aware and bringing attention to this dish. And I see myself as the missing link. I'm the one that's going to fill in the gaps to tell them what the dish really means, what significance it has, what historical cultural value it has, and the origins and all. That's what I'm doing with that YouTube channel at Media World.
What's the future? We're in spring of 2024 right now. As the leader, I proclaim you the leader of the birria movement. What does the future of birria look like in East LA and in the country itself?
While in a perfect world, it would be, everybody would switch over from beef to goat, which is actually one of the most eaten meats across the world. If you go to the Middle East, go to China, they eat that dish. Here in the US, it's not as popular. But in a perfect world, I would say just crossing people over, have them introducing them to the dish so they can try out the different textures, the different profiles. They can see that there's another option. Um, I haven't gotten too much into the technicalities. I know I sourced for one of my vendors here, right off Hurley in Texas, and he was talking about that. The meat that we use is paleo certified. It's halal. It's all this special stuff. I haven't got into the nutritional, but I'm assuming it's probably a little more nutritional than beef is. There's more stuff to it. I know there's a more taste, more flavors in the meat, and my job is to go out there and have people be aware that these places exist. Usually they're in because of the past. They're in Hispanic communities usually. Now I think with the Taco Bell cross, maybe we can now move into other areas that weren't so prevalent before. So I think that there's a potential growth across the U.S. to be able to provide the dish to different ethnic groups and different generations of people.
Is there anything that we haven't covered or gone deep on that you'd like to? Anything else on your mind?
I was thinking about I was tell a story. People come in sometimes into the restaurant and they come and eat and they uh, we serve different dishes because throughout the years we realized that we couldn't only serve birria. We wanted to go to different communities. We had to change our menu, and we did that by utilizing which is the melting pot. So LA was a hub for all these different immigrants from different states of Mexico. They would come in and they would cook food for themselves, and we would learn the rest. Oh, what's that? I want to cook that. So we put on the menu and we teach people how to cook these different things, and we cook different dishes. When that happened, we had a couple of people come over who kind of opened my eyes, and some of the people that kind of gave us credibility, not only credibility, but just noticed us. And I never got to thank them or was Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain came to LA. He visited our location. He tried the beer. I was like, wow, why this guy came back? Why is he coming to us? Why is he here? What's the spectacle? I guess he saw something before. I guess everybody else did was that this was a special dish. He realized that, and he came to us. The second person was Jonathan Gold. Both of them are no longer with us. He was a writer for the LA Times. He wrote like maybe 2 or 3 articles on beat on us, maybe a few other locations as well. But he also saw what the dish meant to our community. So, They tried it, they enjoyed it, they were able to see past, or be able to cross those lines, or be able to cross over and try the dish and taste it for themselves. And I think that you have to be able to be willing. I think now be willing to try new things, but not now everything's people are trying things more than they were in the past. So I guess just basically telling people, it's okay. We've been visited by these people. They tried it. They gave it the seal of approval. Come on, try it. Take your turn in. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and I'm sure you'll be back.
And I love your passion. I love how you explain things. Here we are. We're talking with Raul Luis. Birria is a restaurant in East LA. As we're wrapping up, tell us all the ways that our audience can find you and learn more about you. Tell us your website, your social media, the restaurant itself, anything you want to share.
So they did a documentary. It's Mexi Papa. It's called The Chronicles of Birria. That's on YouTube. You can find me if you want to get. That's just the basic history of how birria got to LA and possibly the US. That goes over the story of myself and another birria. We both held the torch during those times when it wasn't so acceptable in other ethnic groups or generations. If you want more detailed information about the specifics, how certain cooking processes, how it's served, then you can go to Birria World on YouTube. And there it goes. We do a birria tour. We go to different restaurants. We showcase how they cook it, what the different varieties of birria and why it tastes different, how it's served different in certain regions. And then on Instagram, you can go to Birria Chalio, Texas. That's for my Texas. And then there's Birria Chalio for the LA store on Instagram. Then on Facebook, it's Birria Chalio.